Hey everyone, Paul ISM. Welcome to part 4 of our Model Factory Hero 112 Ferrari 250 GTO video build. Back, leading on from part 3, we're going to continue where we left off there last time. All the parts we built up, soldered, prepped, primed, painted, we're all going to be assembled today, detailed, give it all a wash and bring this engine to life. Not literally because it won't run. My cylinders are knackered. But we're going to bring it to life and make it look a bit more realistic, or as realistic as we can anyway. So got a lot of work ahead of us. This was a huge amount of work over the last week to build this thing up. A lot of fiddly work as well. So good optimizer is a must, definitely, and a lot of patience is required. Be under no mistake that these kits are not easy. They aren't. They will test your skills, your patience, and your sanity at the same time. But they're great fun to build. They really are. So yeah, let's jump in where we left off last time. Okay, so we're back with part 4, starting off where we left off last time. All the parts have dried. The centre of these carb manifolds is a gold colour, as far as you can see on the real car. So because we put lacquer-based paint down, I'm going to paint the centres with enamel-based Tamiya titanium gold paint. We'll let it dry, get some enamel thinner on a cotton bud, wipe off the excess, and hey presto, we should have perfectly painted parts. Now, we've got my bobbins full of wire. Bobbins full, sounds like a nickname, doesn't it? This is some 0.45 hookup wire, and we're going to use this for our ignition leads. So we've got our distributors at the top. I didn't show painting them, but I basically mixed some dark brown LP with some black to get a very dark brown colour for the distributor, and then we're going to pop in some wire. Got some super glue on there already. This is just generic thick super glue. Like I say, we just strip the end of each one. We've got 6 leads on each one. Actually, technically there's 7. We're just going to pop it all in and leave an appropriate amount of wire hanging out the side. So just go through and do them all one at a time. Once they're all in, we can pop a bit of glue and distributor. Sadly, we can't solder these bits because they're already painted. There's a locating point, which only lets it be orientated one way. Pop it in and glue it in place. And there we go. We're looking good there. Same for the other side as well. We've got a couple of components to pop in each side. And one of the sides has an extra piece, which I've got no idea what it is. But these little bits are all glued in place with some C glue. Like so, very carefully. And then we're going to mount it to the back of the engine. So there's 2 holes where we line these up. And a bit of CA glue. Line it up so they're nice and straight. Perfect, job done. Now, we're going to bundle those 6 wires and pop them in the end of that tube where we put all the leads last time. You remember we drilled it out and put each individual lead where it went to the engine. So my idea here was I cut a nice thin piece of heat shrink. We will pop it over the wire, get them all lined up nice and neat, heat up the heat shrink, that will bundle them all together and hold them. I can then trim it to the appropriate length, and because they're all gathered together, I can then glue it in place. Once they're glued, I can cut the heat shrink off, and bish bash bosh, jobs are good. So that's what I did here. So we've got the heat shrink in, it's grabbed all the wires and held them all together. I've got no real close-up footage, unfortunately. I put a little bit of Bob Smith's gold into the hole where they sit. It's like a little recessed cup. And then I'm just orientating the wires to get them in. They're like a big thick block of wire and then a little dab of glue on the outside. The great thing about the Bob Smiths is it takes quite a while to dry. It doesn't take paint off either. So if you're quick, you can wipe it off and leave no residue behind. Repeat that for both sides. Well, that's drying for a minute. We've got some enamel thinner on a cotton bud. I'm just going to go around the carb manifolds and just wipe off the excess gold paint. And like I say, because we're using enamel over lacquer, it doesn't affect the lacquer paint. And we can wipe off the excess gold and leave it in the recess of the housing. So nice and simple. Nice quick job. You could mask it and spray it if you wanted, but this is much, much quicker. And this is a beauty of using 2 opposing paint types on each other that you can do things like this. Now, originally I painted the distributor in silver, and then I was going to mask it off, but I found it'd be much easier to mask off the black and paint the silver. So I painted it all black, masked off the centers, and then sprayed off the silver. And it worked out much easier to do this way, a lot cleaner and a lot quicker as well. Still fiddly though, because we had to get around all the bracket, but still a much simpler, faster job than doing it the other way. Okay, so we're going to assemble our carbs now. So we get this nickel pipe tubing that comes with the kit, and that fits in the holes we drilled earlier on with the prox on. And then we cut this short, and there's a little bit of PE that sits in the top. So we're going to do this to all 6 carbs. So I'm just weighing up how it all fits, and it seems spot on. So I pop that piece in. It's already glued in place. I'm just going to cut it so a little bit overhangs out the top, like so. Got my wonderful wire cutters that Mr. Andy Callis sent me. Legend. And a little dab of glue on the other piece and into the hole next to it. Push it right in. It's a nice fit because we drilled it perfectly earlier on. And again, trim it, hold the wire because it will ping off otherwise. And then we got our intakes like so. And we just pop them over the top. It should line up perfectly with the bottom piece. So line it up, make sure it sits straight. Now, the way these fit, there's a flat edge on each side of these intakes, and they line up with each other and sit flush. So make sure you get them all rotated the right way. Now, the Bob Smith's glue gives you a bit of working time. It doesn't set instantly because it's foam safe. It isn't the best CA glue for grab. So I've just popped it in place, lined it up roughly like so. Make sure it's all straight and in place. Just need to push it home like so. There we go. The turned aluminium intakes look fantastic. And then we can grab our other one, pop it next to it, and then turn them so they line up perfect. So like I said, the beauty of the Bob Smith is it doesn't grab instantly. If this was normal CA glue, you get one shot and you have to take it all off and start again. So the second time, pop it over the pipe, push it home and in place. And then we turn them both so they line up with their flat edges. As you can see, we can still move it even though it's CA glued. Keep turning, and then put them up with each other. And there we go. They line up spot on and sit perfectly on top of the carb. There we go. Obviously, we've got 6 of these to make as well, so we'll do the rest of them off camera. And in the centre of them is the teeniest, tiniest piece of PE. So apologies for the head in the way. I need to move my camera to stop this happening. I've noticed it only tends to be on the Model Factory Hero because there's such small fiddly parts. I tend to bring my head over the top to get in camera shot a bit better. But this is a very teeny tiny bit of PE. It just sits inside the carb over that pipe we put in earlier. So a little dab of Bob Smith's, line her up over the hole, and then push it down. And that works perfectly like so. There we go. That's those in place. And we do say repeat that on all of the 6 with all 12 of those little pieces. And then on the manifold itself, we can put a dab of glue. Put the carb manifold over the top, or the intake, sorry, manifold. And just wipe off any excess glue quickly. Like I said, the beauty of the Bob Smiths is it doesn't affect your paint. Any normal CA glue would take the paint off instantly. The Bob Smiths, because it doesn't dry, it's a bit more forgiving. And then we're going to line up our carbs the correct way. Make sure you get them orientated correctly. So a quick test fit. That looks like it's lined up right. We can grab our glue and put way too much in, like that. Yes, you moron. And again, wipe it off very quickly with a cotton bud. There we go. And put a lot less in the other hole. There we are. And then line the carb up. Or drop it the other way. There we go. And pop it in place. Like I said, we've got 6 of these to do. They're in blocks of 2, 3 in total. So just get them in, hold them, make sure everything is straight and lined up. You get a lot of working time with the Bob Smith, so just take your time here. Once you've got it lined up, a quick breath on it with your breath, obviously, will dry it. The CO2 in your breath helps dry it. Or you can hit it with kicker if you want an instant fix. But just take your time, try and keep your work as neat as possible. These little micro tips on the CA glue are a godsend. They really do help get the CA glue where you want it. And just line it all up. And there we go, there's one done. Perfect. So a little bit of kicker. I'm just going to pop it around the back. Move it around where we need and hold it. And there we go. How good do those carbs look? They look absolutely fantastic. Got this little piece that goes in here. So we'll pop that in when we can. A little bit of Bob Smith's. And then the 3 of these to glue in place. So we're just putting on a little bit of glue on those locating points there. Then again, make sure the carbs are facing the right way. Line it all up. Push it home. And there we go. That is our carbs and manifolds in place. They look absolutely fantastic. We've still got plenty more to add to these as well. And they're going to look really good at the end. But there you go. There's our ignition leads, our carbs, and the fuel rail temporarily in place. Now, gearbox, there's a piece of rod that goes through the middle. You can see it, the brass rod. We've drilled into the gearbox itself, pop that in, and we're drilling into the flywheel, a clutch, I think it is. And that will mate up and help us glue it together later on and give it a little bit more strength. So just having a quick test fit. Yep, there we go. Lines up perfectly. So I'm not going to glue that in place just yet. And we've got some very fiddly little Weber decals which fit on the bottom of each carb. Sadly, they're hidden by the fuel rail and you can't really see them, which is a real shame. But I think they look really good. And I've got to say, I'm really happy with the colour of the carbs. They look absolutely just exactly where I imagined the carb to be. Exactly the colour I wanted. It took a little bit of trial and error. But leaving that paint in the recesses worked perfectly. Just added a nice tone to it. And then we've got our oil filter Fram decal in place. Might not be the correct colour for the oil filter. It's close enough for me. I'm more than happy with it. Like I said, we're using strong on the decals, and then we hit it with extra strong at the end to get them to conform in place properly. But how cool are those little Weber decals? They look brilliant. Very, very good. The carbs are looking really, really good. Distributor, another hole I forgot to drill. Again, you see, you go through, you check these kits, and you think, right, no, nothing needs a hole there. And then later on, you're like, oh, it doesn't need a hole. That goes there. So just push that in. It holds itself in there pretty well. Then we can get our pulleys and belt. Just line it up, which it does. Quick dollop of glue in some strategic places. This is just normal CA glue now, so I want this to grab instantly. Line that up. There we go. If you're using these micro tips, you can trim them. If you start getting clogged like one, just snip the end off and you're good to go again. But I do love them. They're absolutely essential now for my bench. And then we can just pop that in there like so. It's a bit fiddly. You need like to be like an octopus to hold these parts, but they fit together not bad. Not too bad at all. It just takes a little bit of manipulation to get it to all line up. And there we go. Job done. Some CA glue. We've got it on the actual brass rod, and we're just applying it on the inner edges of the gearbox. We don't want it all splurging out the side. And it's a case of using our locating point on the engine for our brass rod. Line it up. Pop it in. Make sure everything is straight. Hold it for a sec. Let the CA glue grab its purchase. It's just standard CA glue, so it does grab its bond quite fast. And get some kicker. With kicker, be careful. If you just spray it on and leave it the hell alone, as long as it's not like a car body finish or an aircraft camo, if it's just parts like this, it won't do any harm at all. It'll be just fine. Exhausts. Now, I put these on first time round. I put the bloody things on the wrong way. I didn't have the gearbox on, and I didn't notice I had them orientated the wrong way. So they were all facing forward. They need to face back. So I had to take them all back off, clean them all up. I had to get the procs on to get all the CA glue off and grind it off and start again. So a little bit annoying, but hey, it's one of those things. So we got it all cleaned up, back off, and we're ready to go. So we're just going to apply some CA glue and get the exhaust on the correct way. So again, pay attention to what you're doing. Because of the gearbox on, I didn't notice it was the wrong way around. But yes, the exhaust should face the back. Now, obviously we test fitted these earlier, we know they fit. So they should fit pretty perfect. In this case, get them in where they feel just right, letting the CA glue grab a hold like so. And then the other one just snuggles just underneath it. There we go, perfect. Just hold it for a sec or two. Give it a bit of pressure. There we go. There's exhaust in place. Repeat for the other side. And there we go. Really starting to come alive this now. Once we get a wash on it, it'll add so much depth and just break up some of that monotony of the metal. And it's a step I can't wait to get to. Now, a piece of the kit I've been not looking forward to is these PE linkages on the carb. I think it was 17 components in total to make this single linkage. Some minuscule PE, as you can see here. I've got some close-up shots. It's very difficult to film this close-up. I'm using my phone. So I'm trying to be as accurate and keep everything in focus. And then a little dab of glue. And we've got 6 of these parts on here to pop in place. So it's literally like brain surgery, micro small parts to get in place. So it takes a steady hand, which thankfully I do still have. And it's a case of putting all these parts on here. Thinking about it, it's probably more than 17 parts because there's 7 there alone. And then there's another 12, so it's 19 parts in total because there's 2 each for these parts and there's 6 of these. So yes, it was 19 parts in total. So these are the little linkages, the actual movable parts that will be on the real thing. These need gluing together. Again, really fiddly to do. But basically, just want to line them up. Like so. And then they need gluing in place at the appropriate angle. So just a dab of glue on the PE and line them all up on the right angle, like so. Like I say, not been looking forward to this. It actually didn't turn out to be as bad as I thought it was going to be. Just really, really fiddly. And then on the points where they attach, which is there, just put a generous amount of CA glue without going too heavy. Like so. And then line everything up. You see the carbs are a little bit loose, so we'll have to tend to that later on. But just pop those linkages in like so. So you see they do look really good, to be fair. There's also some PE parts on the back as well, which you can't see here, but I'll show them later on. And then a quick test of the fuel rail. Seems to fit perfectly, and it holds the carbs properly as well, which is really good. And then we've got the throttle linkage itself. So again, a fiddly part. So we've had to put a piece of PE onto the top of the engine cam cover, which has got a little hole in it, which the spring connects to. Yes, that is a real spring. Just adjusting the bracket to get it to fit properly. Very, very fiddly part. So we're just feeding the spring into the hole. Like so. It's a case of just looping it through and then laying it on top of the engine. I'm just going to test fit this, just roughly put it in place where it needs to go. So we can see where it lines up and what we're up to. Okay, we can see that there. There's another piece of PE that attaches on the end of the spring and goes onto that linkage. So it is fiddly work. My hand is in the way, I do apologise, but like I say, I'm just trying to figure out how to attach everything first. So I'm lining it up like the instructions say. We then grab this piece of PE and we're going to attach this to the spring first, because this is the fiddly I want to do. And then loop that back over the original part we did. Like so. And then flip our little photo etch bracket back around the correct way. And then that gets glued underneath the throttle arm itself. So unbelievably fiddly, the tiniest of parts to do. So dab of glue on top of this goes, and just hold it, and a little dab of glue under the linkage. There's a little tiny bit of like a spigot, I'm going to call it, that sticks out that PE can attach to. So we've got a little bit of glue under there as well, and then I'm just going to pull it up and touch it to it. Let's say glue, grab it like that, and there we go. Just make sure everything's orientated the correct way. So very, very fiddly parts to do, but it's in place and it looks really, really good. This is a major undertaking, this engine. I think there's about 200 parts where we're up to about now, just in there, because if you've seen part 1 and 2, you'll know we've got all the internals to this, all the pistons, the con rods, the cranks, valves, the lot, everything. And then finishing touch, we've got a fire and order decal to go on top. No, my fire and order is not correct, if anybody corrects me. So we'll pop that in place, hit it with a little UMP strong decal solution. And now wash. So I want to wash this whole thing. I want to get the exhaust filthy and stain them and go around the whole thing. So what I've done is I'm going to pour in some Tamiya Black Panel Line wash. It's been shaken the bejesus out of. And we're going to thin it a bit with some Santador odorless mineral spirits. We've got a nice old brush, just a cheap generic brush. We're going to give that a good mix up. And then we're going to give everything a wash. Now, I've sped up some parts of this because it does go on a bit, but there's a lot to wash. So we need to make sure that decals are all dry. They've been dry for over 24 hours. And we're just loading the brush up. We're not putting tons on, not in these areas. We don't want a massive amount here. But I want to add depth to the carbs and all the linkages because it just breaks up that monotone. I don't think some people understand the benefits of a wash, not only just in cleanliness, but in modelling as well. It will break up a monotone metallic finish, even if it's a single colour, and it does just adds depth to the model. It's such an important thing to do, and a lot of people do miss out on doing it. So don't be afraid of doing it. We're putting an enamel wash over lacquer paint, so it's perfectly safe. We can remove 90% of this we put on if there's any issue at all. But I'm just applying it in all those recesses, all those raised areas, and we'll let it dry, and then we'll hit it with a cotton bud with some Santador odorless mineral spirits on. Oh yeah, I've suddenly sped up there, turned to Superman. And remove as much as we think we need to, but I'm just applying it everywhere. But it literally will hold a wash. You know my motto. If it hold a wash, it's getting a wash, because that's how things in real life collect dirt and grime and leaks and what have you. So that's what we're going to do. So we'll go around every square inch. We did some of the engine last time, if you remember. Right, I'm just going around some of the more prominent parts and just add in a little bit more of a wash. And then I'm going to add it to all the gearbox as well. So all the areas around there. And the main goal of this is I want to stain those exhausts up. They are far too bright as they are. So we're just going to coat it in the wash. Because it's a matte paint, it'll soak in and stain the paint. And we can then remove it and leave a nice weathered look to that exhaust later on. Course meter underneath as well. This thing is a mammoth engine. I weighed this. It weighs 250 grams. So there's a fair old heft in here alone. I think the colour looks good. I think it's about right what I was looking at. That's the Mr. Hobby Superfine Silver. We've got nice universal colouring all over, which is about correct for the car. And like I say, we're just going around, and like I say, I'm just going to stain up those exhausts. So I'm literally just coating it in the wash. getting all the flanges and everywhere that'll hold a wash, and then just staining the actual paint itself. And just everywhere. This will take a good while to dry because we put so much on. So we'll put that to one side for an hour or so. And just instantly, as soon as you put a wash on it, all the parts come alive. They just get depth, breaks up that monotone. I use pure wash on the throttle linkage because it's a bit more of a prominent part. And here we are. This is about an hour later. We've got a nice cotton bud with some odorless mineral spirits on. It's not soaked in it, but there's enough on there to get the wash off. I'm just going to go around, probably took about half an hour this, go around the whole model. And we're trying to remove the excess wash without taking too much off. We don't remove it all, by all means, but we want to go around and get rid of it all and leave it in the recesses and the raised areas. Get the majority off the exhausts, but still leave behind a nice staining. So fresh cotton bud every couple of minutes. And just go around and work it through till you're happy with it, basically. Until you're happy with the colour, till you're happy with the wash. You can add more if you want. You could go with pure wash, so it goes a lot more prominent. But for me, it looked absolutely perfect. It brought all these parts alive, and it just accentuated all the metalwork. You can see we've got nice depth on that gearbox now. It's all broken up. You can see all the bolt heads have got a wash on them. It just makes a big difference. All the engines got some depth to it as well. I can't stress what a big difference a wash makes. This is a heft. It's a big piece of white metal. And we're at the stage now where the first stage of the instructions, we're up to stage 8 so far, is done. And the next step now is working on the chassis, some of the suspension, and we're going to get the engine in the framework, which is a very exciting moment to do. One thing to bear in mind when you're doing this is don't be too heavy-handed on the parts. Remember, a lot of these are say-glued on. Say-glue does have a good bond, but it will break if pushed too far, so don't go too mad. On the exhaust, I opted to leave it fairly dirty for now, and I'll weigh up what can be seen where later on, and we can always clean it up later on. Well, there we go. That's the engine. That's the first 8 steps of the engine work done. Next time we come back, we're going to be working on something completely different, which, like I say, is the framework and part of the suspension. I'm going to hold this up for you to have a little look. I think it looks all right. It could be better. It could be worse. It's one of those. But I've got some nice colours on there. The carbs look good. I'm happy with those. They still need tweaking a little bit, moving around, but I'm sure some parts are going to get knocked off this and moved and what have you. I'm sure we'll spot excess wash that needs removing at some point as well. But for the stage we're at, the linkages look good. The fuel rail looks good. Just moving that ignition lead there. It's a little bit too far over. In fact, it's come out. I'm just popping it back in its hole. There we go. I'm happy how it's turned out. I think we've broken up that monotonous metallic colour. The carbs look great. I'm very happy with the colour of the carbs. They're exactly what I envisioned. A little bit of a hair on there to fibre. The exhaust, like I say, we're going to leave dirty for now. We'll clean them up as we go. And I'm sure there'll be more cleanup on the engine as we progress through the build. But for now, that's where we're going to leave that. And we'll come back in part 5 very, very soon. And there we go. That's where we're at today. So that is a monumental step. Engine is done for now. There's other bits to go on later, more wiring to do, hoses and that, but I'll have to leave them off for now. But we can move on now to the chassis. Get our chassis sorted, get some suspension on there, get the engine in place, and really start to bring this car to life and progress with the build. If you've watched my bench update, I'm going to lose the 3 builds. I've been having this on the go, a resin kit and a plastic kit at the same time, and alternating between each one, so I get a video of each one. It's not working. It's just too much, and there's too much of a gap between the builds. And I'm not getting as much work done on this as I want to. So I'm going to do exactly what I've done now. There's been 2 parts of this filmed, edited, all at the same time, and uploaded. On the plastic kit, I'm going to start one. I'm going to work through till it's done. Edit it all at the end of the build. All the builds will be like the Camaro build. It's you're going to see. If you're a patron, you'll see it now. If you're not, you'll see it in 4 weeks. Anyway, it's confusing this with the patron thing. But when you see the Camaro build come out, you'll see what I mean. It's filmed as I go. Rather than stopping the stages and waiting for editing and what have you, I'm just carrying on with the build. So we're priming 1 minute, we're back at the bench, soldering, cleaning up interior parts, back in the booth painting, back on the bench doing interior parts, back clear coating, back of the bench doing engine. It just keeps the work going constantly. So it's my natural workflow of the kit. The last kit we did, the Camaro, we did that in. I did it in 10 days. So 10 days to do the build and edit 3 videos, done. Whereas that would normally take me 3 weeks at least to get through that build. So I'm going to do that with each of the kits, alternate between resin and plastic. So there's 2 kits on the go all the time. So either one of those on the go. And the Modified Hero I'm going to release in 2 or 3 parts as we go each time. And that way it keeps the continuity going a bit more and keeps me a bit happier in what I'm doing as well. Because you get into the Modified Hero kit, really enjoy it, and I'll stop and go and work on something else. So I think it makes more sense. But anyway, that's just me. If you'd like to support these videos, there's a Patreon link down below. You can help support me, keep these videos going, because without your support I couldn't do it. There's a Patreon. There's all different tiers on there. You get different access points, early access videos, exclusive videos, a Facebook Live, chat, everything like that. All applicable on all different tiers. Have a look down below at that. There's a PayPal me and a Buy Me Coffee link. I want to send one-offs as well. And there's links to everything down there, ISM and me related. My modelling page is there, all the ISM links. UMP Retail's there. We've got an email to get in touch with me. My stash is down there. All sorts of stuff is down there. And as always, please make sure you sub to the channel, click the bell notification, click that thumbs up as well, and leave a comment. I love reading all your feedback on the videos. It really spurs me along. And we'll be back with part 5 of this soon. And the next build you're going to see off me is this. This is a buddy build with Joe, Tracy, Paul Price, Paul J. Lewis, and a few other guys. We're going to do a 60-year-old AMT Corvette kit, which is going to be great fun. Yes, but anyway, there we go. So enjoy the rest of the day, everyone. Take care. Bye-bye. No idea if I've done that intro.